Speaking of deeply worrying, let's go to the Labor Party in the great state of Victoria. I'm joined by former federal Labor MP Michael Danby. Good to talk to you again, Michael.
Hi, Chris. How are you?
Not too bad. You've got the federal ALP now intervening, effectively taking over the Victorian branch of the ALP while they investigate and work out what's going on. How do you feel about that, and what will the challenge be for Jenny Macklin and the former Premier Steve Bracks?
Well, to make sure that Anthony Albanese isn't too affected before the by-election, I don't think people in Eden Monaro will pay much attention to this. That the long-term prospects of Dan Andrews aren't affected by this scandal that started on 60 Minutes. But you know, I don't think that branch stacking issues capture the public imagination as much as other things. But there are real winners and losers in this. The Premier looks stronger. The nascent alliance of the right with the CFMEU looks like it's busted, and some old friendships between former Minister Adem Somyurek and his long-term employer and ally Anthony Byrne seem to be on the rocks. I'll tell you one.
All right, go on. Sorry, Michael.
No, just I think I know Anthony Byrne from serving on the Intelligence Committee with him, and he's a very cautious and conservative customer. I can't believe he would have allowed his office to be filled with telephone and video intercepts. It's legal in Victoria, apparently, that you can have them if you're a party to the conversation, but it's quite clear that he wasn't in any of those conversations. And I think people will need an assurance that federal parliamentary officers aren't bugged, because, you know, ordinary constituents have got to have confidential conversations sometimes. You don't want them used against you for legal purposes. And Byrne serves on the Intelligence Committee, and I'm sure he has many confidential conversations with his Liberal Party colleagues.
Well, let's just go to that now, and I'll come back to some other issues in a moment. But the suggestion here, well, we know this was filmed in Anthony Byrne's electorate office. As you say, he was formerly a factional colleague of Adem Somyurek. What I've heard in Labor circles, he was worried that there was going to be a push to unseat him, to do him over in pre-selection. And so either he or people sympathetic to him have helped to set up this bugging or this filming in his office. Let's have a look at some of the footage that was aired on 60 Minutes.
But the way I see it working now is that you're going to do the grunt work, or you're a flying squad too, to wherever we're raiding next.
Right.
Well, when I say the grunt work, mostly faction sort of secretariat, you two.
Yeah.
And that's, everything goes through you guys.
There you go. That's the stunning stuff there. Look, it was an amazing story, I think, Michael. As you say, normally people are not particularly interested in the inner workings and factional dealings of political parties, but to have that footage and have it exposed so dramatically was an insight we haven't seen before. Do you believe that what's happened here is people looking to stop Somyurek in his tracks factionally? It is another element of the right wing of the Labor Party looking to stop him unseating people like Anthony Byrne?
Well, not only Anthony Byrne, apparently a number of other federal MPs were threatened. But the Premier did the right thing, given the language and given the footage of the money being used to pay for memberships. But the story about the story is intriguing and as interesting in itself. I mean, that a federal member of Parliament's office was apparently set up with interception devices in order, and you know, there's a long-standing friendship between those two. I think that the winners, apart from the Premier, are the federal MPs who all have their seats guaranteed again. Whether that's a wise thing or not, only time will tell.
Let me jump in before we run out of time, because you've mentioned this a couple of times. I want to pick you up on it. It seems to me extraordinary that you would say Daniel Andrews is strengthened by all of this. Maybe if you look at factional wheeling and dealing, yes, But in the public mind, he's lost 3 ministers, one that in Somyurek, who he'd brought back into cabinet. And this is after the Premier had to weather all that red shirt scandal which went down this path 2 years ago. I would have thought it sends a very, very bad signal to the voters of Victoria that Daniel Andrews has learned nothing about these sorts of allegedly corrupt misdeeds within his own party.
Yes, but it would have been worse if that group had had a majority on the floor of State Conference and passed resolutions criticising his involvement in the Belt Road Initiative, for instance, wouldn't it? So you take slaps in order to avoid bigger slaps. And, I think given the sexist and homophobic language and the use of money, very crude, very unnecessary. Just get people to sign their own forms and join up if you've got ethnic branch members who are interested in joining. You don't have to do this ugly stuff. But I think a lot of those 4,000 people who Somyurek and his colleagues spent years recruiting are going to be culled by Brax and Macklin. So there will have been a lot of work done there for nothing. But it doesn't mean necessarily that in the medium term, couple of years, that the alliance of the non-Conroy, non-Carr, right-left team will coalesce and have a majority. But they won't have it in the short term. And things have been fundamentally changed by that extraordinary 60 Minutes program. It gives a new meaning to the word skullduggery. Chris, I mean, a year in the planning and, shuffling people into certain federal members' rooms in order to make sure the camera was working and, directing people down to local ATMs to sort of film people as they're picking up money. It's all very, very cold-blooded.
Yeah, it's extraordinary.
These two were friends. These two were colleagues.
They were colleagues.
You can imagine, as Paul Keating said, if you want to get a friend in politics, get yourself a dog.
Extraordinary stuff, Michael. We'll talk to you again later about the Belt and Road Initiative, perhaps.
Okay, happy to.
Michael Danby there, the Victorian Labor MP. He's a former federal MP. You hear him talking about the non-Conroy, non-Carr, right and left. Honestly, the factional shenanigans in the Labor Party, they get pretty Byzantine, I think. They know them. These people, they know it backwards. That's why it's great to talk to them. We'll see how this all unfolds for the Premier Daniel Andrews in weeks and months to come.